Welcome back. Tonight, we drift through the sleepy streets of Prague. So wherever you are, however your day has been, you have nothing to do now but rest. There are no twists tonight, nothing to follow, nothing you need to remember in the morning. A city of cobblestones and spires, growing still beneath the glow of gaslight, will drift slowly, in no hurry to be anywhere at all. If these journeys help you rest, you're welcome to follow along, but only if you'd like to. And if you're listening now, leave the name of your city and the time where you are. Wherever you're listening from, you're in good company tonight. So let yourself settle. Let your shoulders soften. And let your eyes close whenever they're ready. Breathe in slowly. And let it go. There's no need to stay awake for any of this. Just let the streets of Prague come to you. Long before any bridge was constructed or a single foundation was laid, there was only the river, moving slowly through the Bohemian basin. The Vltava carved a gentle meandering path for itself, but for many miles in either direction, its banks were precipitous, and its current ran deceptively deep. However, in one particular place, nestled below the protective embrace of two prominent hills, the water became shallow as the riverbed rose to meet the surface, creating a natural ford. This was an unassuming gift of topography, but its significance was absolute. It was the only spot where a horse-drawn cart, or a weary traveler, could reliably and safely cross the water. Consequently, trade caravans laden with goods and stories were inevitably channeled toward this solitary threshold, making a future city not merely a possibility, but a geographical certainty. A settlement began to coalesce from the riverbank's mud and stone, anchored to this one dependable crossing, so the entire story of Prague originates right here, with the simple act of finding a safe passage. In certain districts, the city feels remarkably open, its layout possessing an almost modern sensibility that seems surprising for a place of such antiquity. This spaciousness was the direct result of one man's ambitious vision during the 14th century. Emperor Charles IV resolved to construct something truly magnificent, not merely a modest extension of the existing town. He founded the new town with the explicit goal of doubling Prague's size, conceiving of it not as a suburb, but as a planned metropolis from its inception. For his planners, he issued a specific and monumental decree. The main streets were to be wide enough for a king's entire royal procession to pass through without impediment. It is this singular ambition that explains why you can now stroll down broad avenues that feel centuries younger than their true age, a legacy of a city designed for future greatness and given the space it needed to breathe for generations. From any elevated vantage point in Prague, the view unfolds as a veritable sea of red, an apparently endless expanse of terracotta tile that has come to define the city's visual character. This striking uniformity is not some accident of aesthetic preference, but rather a direct consequence of war and conflagration. Following the devastation of the 30 Years' War, which left the city broken and its population halved, the victorious Catholic Habsburgs initiated a massive rebuilding effort. They sought to create a new Prague that was both visually unified and far more resistant to the fires that had frequently ravaged medieval settlements. To achieve this, they rebuilt the city in the opulent Baroque style, mandating the use of brick for walls and clay tiles for roofs. This single decision, born from both tragedy and a strategic desire for order, is what painted the entire city in its signature warm, earthy red, a beautiful scar that serves as a constant reminder of a city remade from its own ashes. During the 15th century, Prague transformed into an island, not of land surrounded by water, but of belief surrounded by opposition. The outbreak of the Hussite Wars resulted in the city being effectively cut off from the rest of Catholic Europe, isolated and besieged for its reformist faith. This prolonged period of forced independence forged a unique and resilient character that has never entirely faded. While other European cities participated in a shared cultural and religious dialogue, Prague was compelled to develop its own philosophical language. It evolved into a self-reliant hub of religious dissent and intellectual innovation, a place where questioning authority became a necessity for survival. This legacy of defiant thought and self-governance echoed for centuries, creating a city that was always a little more skeptical, a little more independent, and a little more its own. The city's quiet confidence was born in this lonely, pivotal era of isolation. The word defenestration, the act of throwing someone from a window, feels almost uniquely associated with Prague's history. While it sounds like a spontaneous act of rage, in this city, it functioned as a powerful and recurring political tool. These were not random brawls, but calculated events intended to trigger revolution. The most famous of these occurred in 1618 at Prague Castle, when a group of Protestant nobles, infuriated by the violation of their religious freedoms, threw two Catholic governors and their secretary from a high window. Although the men miraculously survived the fall, the act itself was a symbolic point of no return. This single, dramatic gesture directly ignited the 30 Years' War, a devastating conflict that would ultimately reshape the political map and religious identity of all of Central Europe. A single moment of violence, in a single room, set an entire continent ablaze, punctuating the city's history with these sudden, vertical acts of rebellion. The tangled, winding streets of Prague's old center feel like a journey into a distant past, and their continued existence is the result of a deliberate and conscious choice. During the 19th century, as many European capitals were aggressively modernizing, cities like Paris and Vienna famously carved wide, straight boulevards through their medieval hearts, demolishing centuries of history in the name of progress and order. Prague was presented with the same choice, and local planners proposed similarly grand schemes to straighten the city's crooked lanes and rationalize its layout. But here, a different path was chosen. The city's leaders ultimately decided to preserve the ancient street plan, opting to leave the labyrinth intact, and honor the city's organic, medieval growth. This singular decision is why you can still get wonderfully lost in the same maze of cobblestone alleys that residents have navigated for more than 500 years. A city that chose memory over modern convenience. In the autumn of 1918, Prague awoke to find itself transformed into a national capital. The creation of the new nation of Czechoslovakia elevated the city almost overnight from a provincial administrative center of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to the proud heart of a sovereign country. This sudden shift in status unleashed a tremendous surge of energy, optimism, and national pride. The city urgently required new government ministries, new banks, and new apartments for a rapidly growing population. This massive building boom happened to coincide with a period of intense artistic experimentation across Europe. As a result, Prague became an unexpected and enthusiastic canvas for some of the most radical new architectural styles of the era. The city's architects embraced Cubism and functionalism with a unique passion, and these stark, geometric buildings rose among the Gothic and Baroque spires, creating a fascinating architectural dialogue that remains visible on the city's streets today, as a testament to a nation building its new identity. A revolution can begin in the most unexpected of places, and in Prague in 1989, it found its nerve center in the basement of a theater. As massive, peaceful protests filled the streets during the Velvet Revolution, the nascent opposition movement required a headquarters. They found it in the cramped cellar of the Magic Lantern Theatre, a space normally reserved for stage props and old costumes. Here, the dissident playwright Václav Havel and his colleagues formed the Civic Forum, turning this small, smoky room into the unlikely political heart of the movement. It was in this subterranean space that they planned strategy, printed leaflets on a mimeograph machine, and conducted tense negotiations with the collapsing regime. They transformed a space for artistic illusion into a center for political reality. And from this theater basement, they successfully and peacefully negotiated the end of 40 years of communist rule. It's a quiet reminder that the most profound changes often begin in the most unassuming of places, far from the traditional halls of power. In the summer of 2002, the Vltava River swelled with a terrible and unprecedented force. The resulting flood was a modern catastrophe for Prague, inundating homes, businesses, and even the historic metro system with corrosive water. Yet, as the floodwaters finally receded, they left behind an unexpected and remarkable gift. The event acted as a massive, accidental archaeological excavation, as the sheer force of the water stripped away centuries of accumulated soil and modern pavement. This process revealed the foundations of long-forgotten medieval buildings, and unearthed hidden cellars. Most remarkably, it exposed the buried stone remains of the original 12th century Judith Bridge, the predecessor to the iconic Charles Bridge. In the subsequent process of cleaning up and installing modern high-tech flood defenses, the city was forced to confront its deepest layers of history. The flood was a painful reminder of the river's power, but also a quiet revelation of the city's incredible resilience and profound past. At the turn of the 20th century, Prague's historic Jewish ghetto was a dense, tangled neighborhood of ancient buildings and narrow lanes, which city officials viewed as unsanitary and overcrowded. They embarked on a radical plan of orthodox sanitation or carré clearance, intending to create a modern Parisian-style district of wide boulevards and grand apartment blocks. The vast majority of the ancient quarter was demolished, its labyrinthine streets and old houses swept away in the name of hygiene and progress. However, a strange and paradoxical decision was made during this process. The planners chose to save a handful of the oldest synagogues, preserving them as a kind of open-air museum to a culture they were otherwise erasing. They could not have known that this act of curated preservation would be the sole reason that the historic heart of the Jewish quarter survived at all. Today, these ancient buildings stand as islands of memory, surrounded by the grand Art Nouveau structures that replace the world they once served, a neighborhood that exists only because of the plan to destroy it. The arrival of the first steam locomotive in the 1840s did far more than simply establish a connection between Prague and Vienna. It fundamentally rewired the city's entire geography. The new railway lines and the smoke-belching factories that inevitably grew alongside them created entire new neighborhoods from what had been empty fields. Before the train, the city was a compact world largely contained within its old walls, but the railway brought heavy industry, and industry required a large workforce. Districts like Karlin and Smyčov sprouted from the ground, their growth patterns dictated by the path of the tracks and the location of the factories. This development pulled the city's economic and social center of gravity away from the old squares and palaces, creating a new, industrial Prague. This city of workers and factories existed in parallel to the ancient city of kings and scholars, and the sound of the train whistle was the sound of a new era arriving, one that would forever change the shape and soul of the city. On the periphery of Prague, the urban landscape undergoes a dramatic transformation, as the romantic spires of the center give way to vast, repeating patterns of concrete. These are the Panelák housing estates, a direct and enduring legacy of the communist era's response to a severe post-war housing crisis. The city needed to accommodate thousands of workers for its expanding industries, and it needed to do so quickly and affordably. The chosen solution was mass prefabrication. Enormous concrete panels were mass-produced in factories, and then assembled on-site into towering, functionless apartment blocks. The result was a series of monotonous grey estates that now form a ring around the historic city. While often criticized for their lack of aesthetic charm and human scale, they provided modern amenities like central heating and indoor plumbing to generations of families, and they remain a stark, geometric reminder of a time when the needs of the collective were prioritized, creating a very different kind of Prague on the city's edges. On a spring morning in 1942, a single act of resistance on a Prague street corner sent shockwaves across occupied Europe. Czechoslovak paratroopers, trained in Britain, successfully assassinated Reinhard Heydrich, the high-ranking Nazi official known as the Butcher of Prague. This audacious act had a profound and brutal impact on the city. The Nazi reprisals were swift and horrific, most notoriously including the complete obliteration of the nearby village of Lidich, where all the men were executed, and the women and children were sent to concentration camps. This terrible event, along with the bravery of the assassins who later died in a firefight, became deeply embedded in the city's collective memory. It created a powerful civic story of resistance, sacrifice, and the terrible cost of defiance. The assassination did not liberate the city, but it defined its moral stance during the war, leaving a quiet weight of loss and courage that still settles on certain streets. The year 1968 began with a season of profound hope in Prague, a period of liberalization and artistic freedom that came to be known as the Prague Spring. This beautiful, brief moment was brutally crushed in August by a Soviet-led invasion of Warsaw Pact troops. Tanks rolled into Wenceslas Square, and the city was plunged into a deep political and cultural freeze that would last for 2 decades. During this period, known as normalization, creative development largely stagnated as the city was covered in a layer of grey neglect. There was little money or political will for new construction or grand renewal projects. Paradoxically, this long era of stagnation had an unintended and beneficial side effect. It perfectly preserved the city's historic character. While other cities were demolishing old buildings for modern high-rises, Prague was simply left alone, its beauty slowly decaying but ultimately remaining intact, waiting patiently for the thaw that would eventually come in 1989. During the 19th century, Prague was a city with a divided soul, the ancient capital of Bohemia, but ruled by the German-speaking Habsburg Empire. In response to this cultural dominance, a powerful movement known as the National Revival began to flourish. This was a deliberate and passionate campaign to make Prague feel more Czech, and to reclaim its distinct cultural identity. This movement was not confined to language and literature. It was about building monumental statements in stone. The construction of the Grand National Theatre and the imposing National Museum were the cornerstones of this effort. These were not merely building projects, they were powerful public declarations of cultural independence. Financed by the people themselves, the National Theatre was a statement in stone and gold, asserting a distinct Czech history and art, designed to rival the grandest structures of Vienna, and prove that Prague was the proud heart of a nation. A city's name is often a kind of poem, a single word that holds a deep and resonant story. The name Prague, or Praha in Czech, is thought to derive from the Old Slavic word, pra. This word carries a dual meaning. It can be translated as threshold, suggesting a doorway to another place, or as ford, indicating a shallow place to cross a river. Some linguists also connect it to the word for a river rapid, which creates a rocky sill in the water. Whichever origin story is true, the name serves as a permanent reminder of the city's most fundamental reason for being. It is a place of crossing, a gateway that exists entirely because of a simple geographic feature that allowed people to pass from one side of the Vltava to the other. The city's name is a quiet acknowledgement that its whole identity is owed to that ancient act of stepping from one bank to the next. In the year 1348, a single royal decree fundamentally altered the destiny of Prague. The visionary Emperor Charles IV founded a university in the city, but this was not just any school. It was the very first university in all of Central, Northern and Eastern Europe. Prior to this, Prague was already an important political and commercial hub, a center of regional power and trade. The establishment of Charles University, however, transformed it into something more enduring, a permanent intellectual capital. It immediately became a magnet for scholars, students, and progressive thinkers from across the continent. For the centuries that followed, the university ensured that Prague was not just a place where goods were traded, but a place where ideas were born, debated, and disseminated. It wove a thread of intellectual curiosity and academic rigor into the very fabric of the city, a thread that remains unbroken to this day, creating a city that thinks. For many centuries, the sound of the German language was as common on the streets of Prague as the sound of Czech, reflecting the city's long history as a bilingual, multicultural hub within the Holy Roman and Austrian empires. However, in the aftermath of World War II, a dramatic and sudden demographic shift occurred. The city's large and long-established German-speaking population was expelled as a painful consequence of the war and occupation. This act instantly and profoundly changed the linguistic and cultural rhythms of daily life. German street signs came down, German-language newspapers vanished, and a whole layer of the city's complex identity was stripped away. This event completed the transformation into a predominantly Czech-speaking capital, a process that had begun with the national revival a century earlier. The city became more homogeneous, its voice clearer, but also quieter, with the echo of a language that had shared its streets for nearly 1,000 years now gone. Prague Castle is not a single monolithic building, but rather a sprawling and beautifully confusing complex of palaces, churches, and tiny alleys that feels more like a fortified city than a single fortress. The reason for its unique, layered character is quite simple. It was never abandoned. For more than 1,000 years, it has served as the continuous seat of power for Bohemian kings, Holy Roman emperors, and modern presidents. Each new ruler or dynasty did not build a new castle elsewhere. Instead, they built upon, altered, and added to the work of their predecessors. A Romanesque chapel was encased within a soaring Gothic cathedral, and a Renaissance palace was constructed next to a grand Baroque wing. This constant process of addition and renovation, layer upon layer, has created a living museum of architecture, where you can walk through a millennium of history in just a few hundred steps. The castle is a testament to continuity, a place that has been constantly changing yet has always remained the same. The fundamental shape of Prague was dictated by its hills, long before it could be called a city. Two dominant high grounds, Hradčany to the north and Vyšehrad to the south, formed a natural frame for its development. Hradčany, the hill where Prague Castle now stands, became the seat of political power, while the rocky promontory of Vyšehrad became the city's mythical birthplace. These two hills acted like a natural pincer, guarding the river valley that lay between them. This valley became the inevitable channel for everything that followed, as commerce, settlement, and life itself flowed along the path of the Vltava, contained between these two watchful high places. This geography created the elongated, linear shape of historic Prague, which did not spread out evenly, but grew along the river, in the safe and fertile basin, carved out by nature, and guarded by the two hills that still define its skyline. When the Charles Bridge was first completed in the early 15th century, it was a relatively plain, functional Gothic structure, a vital connection, but not the open-air gallery of sculptures we see today. The 30 dramatic Baroque statues that now line its balustrade were a much later addition, installed over a century after the bridge was finished. Their placement was a deliberate and powerful act of propaganda during the height of the Catholic Counter-Reformation. The statues transformed a civic structure into a grand, theatrical procession of saints, turning a simple walk across the river into a symbolic journey of faith. Each sculpture was designed to inspire awe, devotion, and a sense of the Catholic Church's triumphant return to power in the formerly Hussite city. The bridge became more than a bridge, it became an open-air cathedral, a sermon in stone intended to capture the hearts and minds of all who crossed. The Prague metro system, which opened its first line in 1974, was a significant achievement of modern Soviet-era engineering, designed to move thousands of people efficiently beneath the historic city. However, its central stations were constructed with a secret, secondary purpose in mind. This was the height of the Cold War, and the threat of nuclear conflict was a tangible anxiety. The deepest parts of the metro were therefore engineered to double as massive nuclear fallout shelters. The incredibly long, steep escalators that descend to the platforms are a visible clue to this hidden function, leading to fortress-like stations that could be sealed off from the surface. This dual purpose determined the great depth and the robust construction of the central lines, a silent, defensive layer of Cold War history buried deep beneath the daily commute of the city. If you visit a historic cellar bar or restaurant in Prague's Old Town, you may actually be standing on what was once the original street level of the city. Prague has a long and difficult history with the Vltava River, which has always had a tendency to flood. After a particularly devastating flood in the 13th century, the city's leaders made a radical and laborious decision. They chose to raise the entire street level of the old town by as much as a full story, bringing in tons of earth and rubble to artificially lift the ground. The original ground floors of the beautiful Romanesque houses that lined the streets were not demolished. They simply became the basements and cellars of the new Gothic buildings constructed on top. This is why today, you can walk down a flight of stairs into a cozy cellar and find yourself in a perfectly preserved 12th century hall, a city buried beneath a city. The location of Prague's magnificent main train station can seem slightly peculiar today, as it sits just on the edge of the historic center, rather than in the middle of everything. This placement is a direct consequence of something that no longer exists: the city's extensive defensive walls. When the railway first arrived in the mid-19th century, Prague was still a fortified city, and its massive stone walls and moats presented a serious obstacle to new construction. The station could not be built inside the old city, so it had to be constructed just outside the fortifications, near the former Horse Gate. This decision had a tremendous impact on how the city subsequently grew. The area around the new station quickly developed into the bustling modern neighborhoods of the New Town and Vinohrady, as the station acted as a powerful magnet, pulling commerce and development towards it, and shaping the modern city that grew up around the old, walled core. Certain streets in Prague follow a logic that is now hidden from view. Their paths dictated by structures that have long since vanished. Narodny Street, a busy modern avenue, possesses a gentle, sweeping curve that seems unusual for a major thoroughfare. This curve is not an accident of planning or a concession to the natural landscape. It is, in fact, a ghost. The street perfectly follows the path of the old town's 13th century defensive moat and walls. Long after the fortifications were torn down in the 18th century, and the moat was filled in, the path they had carved into the urban fabric remained. The new road simply followed this line of least resistance, embedding a memory of the city's medieval defenses into the modern street plan. When you walk along this street, you are unknowingly tracing the footsteps of the guards who once patrolled the ramparts, treading on a hidden piece of history. In Prague, the visible city is often only half of the complete story, because beneath the bustling cobblestones of the old town square lies an entirely different, more ancient metropolis. When you descend into one of the many historic cellars for a meal or a quiet drink, you are in fact visiting the original ground level of Prague. Following a series of devastating floods in the 13th century, the city's administrators made the monumental decision to raise the street level by an entire story. The Romanesque ground floors of the houses from that period were not demolished, but were instead simply buried, becoming the foundations and cellars for the new Gothic city constructed above. Today, these subterranean spaces, with their formidable stone walls and distinctive barrel-vaulted ceilings, serve as a quiet and tangible connection to the city's deepest past, a hidden world where you stand on what was once a sunlit street. The Charles Bridge is watched over by many silent guardians, most of whom are the statues of saints that line its balustrade. However, one of its most important guardians is a simple, functional secret hidden in plain sight. On the old town side, built into the embankment wall just near the bridge, is a small, carved stone head. Weathered and worn by centuries, this figure with a flowing beard is known as the Bearded Man, or Braddock. He is not primarily a work of art, but a crucial piece of medieval engineering that has served for centuries as the city's most important flood marker. The old rule is simple and dire. When the waters of the Vltava rise to touch the tip of his stone beard, it signals that a major, catastrophic flood is imminent, a warning for residents to protect the bridge and flee to higher ground. He is a quiet, stone sentinel, a permanent reminder of the river's latent power. Inside the soaring Gothic space of St. Vitus Cathedral, light filters through centuries of stained glass, telling its stories in the formal, geometric style of the Middle Ages. Yet one window sings a distinctly different song, a swirl of vibrant color, characterized by flowing lines and soulful, romantic faces. This is the work of Alphonse Mucha, the celebrated master of Art Nouveau, and it was created not in the 14th century, but in the 1930s. Mucha, a passionate Czech patriot, donated his immense talent to the cathedral's long-delayed completion. He employed modern techniques to create a window that feels more like a vast painting than a traditional mosaic of glass, depicting the lives of the Slavic saints Cyril and Methodius in his signature style. It is a startling and beautiful intrusion of the modern world into a sacred ancient space, a luminous bridge between two very different centuries. Cubism was a revolutionary art movement that shattered objects into geometric forms, a style mostly confined to the two-dimensional worlds of painting and sculpture. In Prague, however, architects decided to build it. The House of the Black Madonna stands as one of the only places in the world where you can walk directly inside a Cubist creation. The architect, Josef Gokar, did not simply apply geometric patterns to the facade. He designed the entire building according to Cubist principles. The famous interior staircase is a masterpiece of fractured, spiraling forms, and the aesthetic extends to the smallest details. The light fixtures, the door handles, and even the furniture in the Grand Café Orient on the first floor were all designed with the same jarring, angular aesthetic. It is a building that challenges the very idea of a flat wall or a simple corner, allowing you to experience a radical art movement not just with your eyes, but with your entire body. The escalators that descend into the heart of Prague's metro system are unusually long and steep, creating the feeling of a journey deep into the earth. This is not an illusion, as they were designed that way for a very specific and serious reason. Many of the central stations, constructed during the height of the Cold War, were also intended to serve as deep-level nuclear bunkers. The long journey down was an integral part of the defensive design, leading to heavily reinforced tunnels and platforms that could be sealed off from the outside world with massive blast doors. In the event of a nuclear attack, these stations were equipped to shelter thousands of citizens from the fallout for an extended period. Today, as you ride the escalator, you are passing through a silent monument to a past anxiety, a hidden layer of defense buried deep beneath the city's daily commute. For many years, the Žižkov television tower was a source of local embarrassment. A piece of stark, high-tech communist-era architecture that was often voted one of the ugliest buildings in the world. It looms over the historic skyline like a strange futuristic rocket. Then, in the year 2000, the artist David Cerny installed a temporary art piece consisting of giant, black, faceless baby sculptures that appeared to be crawling up its sides. The effect was surreal, disturbing, and strangely charming all at once. The babies proved so popular with both locals and tourists that they were eventually made a permanent fixture. They transformed the tower from a reviled eyesore into a beloved, quirky landmark. The faceless infants, endlessly climbing towards the sky, gave the unloved building a sense of humor and a new identity, a perfect example of Prague's ability to embrace the absurd and make it its own. In Wenceslas Square, a grand equestrian statue honors St. Wenceslas, the revered patron saint of the Czech nation, presenting him as a noble and heroic figure. However, just a few streets away, hidden inside the beautiful Lucerna Palace passage, you can find its satirical echo. Hanging from the ceiling of the atrium is another statue of St. Wenceslas on his horse, but in this version, created by the artist David Cerny, the horse is suspended upside down. The steed appears to be dead, its tongue lolling out of its mouth, while the saint sits astride its belly, with an expression of weary resignation. The sculpture is a piece of classic Czech dark humor, a playful and subversive commentary on the grand, heroic myths of the nation. It's a startling, funny and thought-provoking sight, a piece of public art that quietly waits to be discovered. The Old Jewish Cemetery is a quiet and profoundly powerful place. A dense forest of stone, where thousands of headstones lean against each other at impossible angles, and the ground itself seems to heave and sigh. This chaotic landscape is the direct result of a simple, sad necessity. For over 300 years this small plot of land was the only place where the Jews of Prague were permitted to bury their dead. As the cemetery could not expand outwards, it was forced to grow upwards. When the ground level was full, a new layer of soil was brought in, and a new layer of graves was started directly on top of the old ones. In some places, the dead are buried up to 12 layers deep. The tilted, overlapping headstones are not a sign of neglect, but a testament to a community's determination to honor its dead against all odds, a vertical history written in stone and earth. On the banks of the Vltava, there is a building that appears to be captured in a moment of graceful motion. The dancing house, designed by architects Vlado Milunik and Frank Gehry, is a dynamic swirl of glass and concrete that stands in stark contrast to the elegant Art Nouveau buildings that surround it. The building has an official nickname that reveals its whimsical inspiration, Fred and Ginger, a tribute to the famous Hollywood dancing duo, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. The solid static concrete tower, with its jaunty hat-like top, represents the male dancer, Fred. The dynamic, curving glass tower, which seems to sway and flow as if in mid-twirl, represents his partner, Ginger. Her dress, a flared skirt of glass, swirls around her as she is held in his steady embrace. It's a piece of architecture that captures a fleeting moment of grace, a dance frozen in time. In the heart of modern Prague, it is possible to travel for several blocks without ever stepping onto an open street. A hidden network of covered passages, or pasazy, creates a secret interior journey through the city. These passages were built in the early 20th century, cutting directly through the ground floors of large apartment and office buildings to connect busy streets with quiet, hidden atriums. Walking through them feels like discovering a secret shortcut, as you leave a noisy avenue and enter a silent world of mosaic floors, glass ceilings, and small, forgotten shops. They are a remnant of a more elegant era of city life, a quiet, indoor alternative to the bustling sidewalks. They offer a different rhythm, a slower and more contemplative way to move through the dense fabric of the new town. From the high ground of Letna Park, one can enjoy an iconic view of Prague's bridges and spires, but the most prominent object on the hill itself is not an ancient monument. It is a giant, 75-foot-tall metronome, its long red arms swinging back and forth, endlessly and silently marking time. This particular spot has a heavy history, as it was once the site of a colossal monument to the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin, a hated symbol of oppression that was eventually dynamited in 1962. For years, the massive plinth stood empty. Then, in 1991, the artist Vratislav Novak installed the metronome as a powerful and deliberately ambiguous symbol. Is it counting down the time to some future event, or simply reminding us that time passes, and that all political powers, no matter how monumental, are ultimately temporary? It is a quiet, constant pulse, a heartbeat for the city below. In a few of Prague's older municipal buildings, such as the new City Hall, the past remains in constant motion. Here you can still find a strange and wonderful kind of elevator known as a paternoster. It is not a single car that stops and starts, but a continuous chain of open, doorless compartments that move slowly and constantly in a loop, ascending on one side and descending on the other. There are no buttons to push. To use it, you must time your entrance, stepping into the moving box as it passes your floor. It requires a small leap of faith, as does stepping off at your destination. These lifts are a charming mechanical relic from a bygone era, a piece of living history that is still part of the daily routine for city employees. They are a quiet reminder of a time when technology felt a little more physical, and a little more adventurous. The National Theatre is far more than just a building. It is the physical embodiment of a nation's cultural aspirations. When it was constructed in the late 19th century, it was a patriotic project funded by small donations from Czech people all across the country, under the slogan, "The nation to itself." To symbolize this national unity, a call went out to towns and villages across the Czech lands, asking them to send a stone from a symbolic local site to be included in the theatre's foundation. Stones arrived from legendary mountains, famous castle ruins, and historic battlefields. Each one was carefully laid, becoming a physical piece of the homeland built into the very base of its most important cultural stage. The foundation of the National Theatre is therefore a mosaic of the entire country, a quiet, powerful statement that the nation's culture is built upon the bedrock of its land and its history. Walking into the philosophical hall of the Strahov Monastery Library is a breathtaking experience, as your eyes are immediately drawn upwards to a massive soaring fresco that appears to curve into a majestic dome. This, however, is a beautiful and masterful illusion. The ceiling of the Grand Hall is actually completely flat. The artist, Franz Anton Maulberch, was a master of the trompe-l'œil technique, which translates as, to deceive the eye. He used his incredible skill with perspective and shading to create the powerful illusion of soaring height and curved architectural space where none exists. The fresco itself, titled "The Intellectual Progress of Mankind," is a celebration of knowledge and enlightenment. It's a fitting theme for a library, and the illusionistic ceiling adds to the sense of wonder, creating a room where art and architecture conspire to lift your gaze and your spirit towards the heavens. On a prominent hill overlooking the city stands a delicate, latticed steel structure that looks remarkably familiar. The Petrin Lookout Tower is affectionately known as Prague's Eiffel Tower, and it was built in 1891, just 2 years after its famous Parisian inspiration was completed. Its resemblance to the Eiffel Tower, however, is a clever and charming illusion of scale. The Petrin Tower is only 63.5 meters tall, approximately 1/5 the size of the real thing. Crucially, it sits on top of a high hill, which means that its peak is actually at a higher altitude than the top of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It's a wonderful piece of civic pride, a smaller, more modest version that uses the landscape to its advantage. It doesn't try to compete with its inspiration. It just playfully winks at it, while offering one of the most beautiful panoramic views of Prague. Just a few steps away from the bustling crowds and grand courtyards of Prague Castle, you can discover a place that feels like a forgotten village from a fairy tale. Novi Svet, which translates to New World, is a single winding cobblestone street lined with tiny colorful houses. It exists in a world entirely separate from the grand palaces and cathedrals nearby. This quiet lane was once home to the castle's servants, goldsmiths and other artisans, and the houses are built on a much more human, almost miniature scale. Walking here, especially in the early morning or late evening when the street is empty, feels like stepping into a different century. The only sounds are your own footsteps on the stones, and the whisper of the wind. It's a perfectly preserved pocket of the past, a quiet, humble world living peacefully in the shadow of immense power and history. On the old town square, one particular house stands out for its intricate, monochrome facade decoration. The house at the Minute, where the writer Franz Kafka lived for a time as a child, is covered in beautiful scenes from classical mythology and the Bible. This striking decoration, however, is not paint. It is a Renaissance technique known as sgraffito, which means to scratch. The process is painstaking. First, a dark layer of plaster is applied to the wall, followed by a light-colored layer on top. Before the top layer dries, the artist carefully scrapes it away to reveal the dark plaster underneath, creating the design by removing material, rather than by adding it. This gives the images a unique, slightly three-dimensional quality, like a low-relief carving. It's a form of architectural art that is both durable and incredibly detailed, a story etched into the very skin of the building. High on a hill overlooking Prague stands the massive Vltava National Memorial, a monument of immense scale and weight, crowned by one of the largest equestrian statues in the world. It was originally constructed in the 1930s to honor the Czechoslovak legionaries who fought for the country's independence in World War I. History, however, had other plans for this grand structure. After the communist coup in 1948, the memorial was co-opted by the new regime, and transformed into a mausoleum for the country's most prominent communist leaders. Its vast, cold marble halls were designed to inspire a sense of awe and intimidation, a feeling of the individual being dwarfed by the overwhelming power of the state. Today it has been rededicated to the nation's complex history, but the chilling monumental emptiness of its grand halls still speaks of the time when it served a very different, more oppressive purpose. The astronomical clock on Prague's Old Town Hall is much more than just a beautiful and elaborate timepiece. It is a complex and functioning mechanical model of the medieval universe. While the upper dial does indeed tell the time, its true purpose is to display the sky as people understood it over 600 years ago, operating on a geocentric model with the Earth at the center of the cosmos. The main dial shows the position of the Sun and the Moon as they move through the constellations of the zodiac, and it also tracks the seasons, the phases of the Moon, and the time between sunrise and sunset. To look at the clock is to see the universe through medieval eyes, a complex and beautiful dance of celestial bodies revolving around our world. It is a mechanical poem, a tribute to a vision of the cosmos that has long since passed into history. As dusk settles over Prague, a quiet and magical tradition comes to life in the historic heart of the city. Along the royal route that leads from the old town square to the Charles Bridge, the street lights begin to glow, with a soft, warm, flickering light. Many of these are not electric, but are real gas lamps, and they are not automated. Every evening, a uniformed lamplighter makes his rounds, carrying a long pole which he uses to open the gas valve and light the flame in each lamp, one by one. It is a ritual that preserves a piece of the 19th century in the heart of the modern city. It's a quiet, gentle performance that most visitors miss, but if you are lucky, you might catch a glimpse of this solitary figure bringing a gentler, more romantic light to the cobblestone streets as darkness falls. The municipal house is not merely a building decorated in the Art Nouveau style. It is a complete, immersive work of art, a Gesamtkunstwerk. When it was constructed in the early 20th century, the leading Czech artists of the day were commissioned to create a total aesthetic experience. Every single detail, no matter how small, was custom designed to be part of a harmonious whole. The door handles have a unique, flowing shape, the light fixtures are individual works of sculpture, and even the radiator covers and the lettering on the signs were designed with artistic care. If you dine in one of its famous restaurants, the menu itself is a piece of Art Nouveau graphic design. To walk through the municipal house is to be surrounded by a single, powerful artistic vision, a celebration of craftsmanship, and a belief that beauty should be part of every aspect of daily life. Just south of the city center, a dark, powerful iron bridge crosses the Vltava, carrying trains to and from the south. This is the Vyšehrad railway bridge. And while it is not as famous or as beautiful as the Charles Bridge, it is a protected industrial monument in its own right. Its riveted iron lattice construction is a powerful symbol of Prague's industrial age. Built at the turn of the 20th century, it represents a different kind of beauty, the beauty of engineering, of strength, and of pure function. It stands in stark contrast to the ancient, mythical castle of Vyšehrad, which sits on the cliff just above it. The bridge is a reminder of the era of steam, steel and industrial progress that transformed Prague, connecting the two sides of the river, but also connecting two different eras of the city's history, the ancient and the industrial. Tucked away within the vast Prague castle complex is a street that seems to have been built for smaller people. The Golden Lane consists of a row of tiny, colorful houses built directly into the arches of the castle's defensive walls, which serve as their back wall. In the 16th century, these were the homes of the castle's marksmen, guards, and servants, and legend also associates the lane with alchemists. Their miniature scale offers a rare and intimate glimpse into the lives of the ordinary people who lived and worked in the shadow of immense power. To step inside one of these dwellings is to understand the cramped, humble conditions they endured. The lane is a quiet reminder that a castle is not just a home for kings and queens, but a complex ecosystem and a workplace for hundreds of people whose lives were just as important, but much less grand. Beneath the floor of the Orthodox Church of Saints Cyril and Methodius lies a small, dark crypt that has become a national shrine. It is a quiet, somber space, but its walls tell a violent and heroic story. The rough stone is still scarred with bullet holes, and a high water mark from a flood. This is the place where the 7 Czechoslovak paratroopers who assassinated Reinhard Heydrich made their last stand in June 1942. After being betrayed, they were cornered in the church by hundreds of Nazi soldiers. They fought for hours before finally taking their own lives in this crypt, rather than be captured. The German forces even tried to flood them out, leaving the watermarks that are still visible. Today the crypt is a national memorial, a sacred space, and a hidden, underground monument to an act of incredible bravery and ultimate sacrifice. Thousands of travelers pass through Prague's main train station every day, rushing through a modern subterranean concourse of shops and fast food restaurants, their eyes fixed on the departure boards. However, if they were to take an escalator upstairs, they would discover a forgotten masterpiece of architecture. The original main hall of the station, known as the Vltava River, is a breathtaking work of Art Nouveau design. It is a grand, semicircular hall, with a soaring decorated dome, intricate sculptures of female figures representing the city, and elegant ironwork. This was the original entrance to the station, a place of glamour and excitement in the golden age of train travel. Today it is mostly empty and unused, a silent, beautiful ghost hiding in plain sight, waiting for travelers to look up and discover the grandeur that lies just above their heads. In the week leading up to Christmas, a strange new feature appears on the streets of Prague, as large, open-topped tubs of water are set up on sidewalks, and crowds gather around them. This is the annual Carp sale, a deeply ingrained Czech tradition. The Carp is the traditional centerpiece of the Christmas Eve dinner, and for many families the ritual involves buying the fish live a day or two before the holiday. They then bring it home and keep it in their own bathtub, a practice that originally ensured the fish was fresh and clean. For children, the carp often becomes a temporary pet, swimming placidly in the family bathroom for a day or two. It's a slightly surreal and uniquely Czech rhythm, the sight of these sidewalk fish markets signaling the true start of the holidays, and the knowledge that in apartments across the city, a large fish is making its temporary home before its final, festive duty. When Praguers need a quick and satisfying bite, they often turn to a local classic that is much more than a simple sandwich. Schlebecki are small, artfully decorated, open-faced sandwiches, a beloved and ubiquitous part of the city's culinary rhythm. In delis and cafes all over Prague, you can see them lined up in beautiful, colorful rows behind glass counters, each one a small work of edible art. A slice of white bread, called vejka, is topped with a variety of carefully arranged ingredients, from creamy potato salad and a slice of ham, to a hard-boiled egg with mayonnaise, or tangy pickled herring with onion. They are a staple for a quick lunch, an essential component of any party or celebration, and a small, daily ritual for thousands. They are a simple, elegant, and delicious expression of everyday Czech culture, served one slice at a time. The sound of summer arriving in Prague is a gentle, happy murmur that rises from its parks and green spaces. It is the sound of the city's beer gardens, or pivní zahrady, coming to life after the long winter. As the weather warms, locals flock to sprawling parks like Letna or Rigroví sady, where hundreds of people gather at long wooden tables under the shade of chestnut trees. The ritual is simple and deeply satisfying. It is about unwinding after a day of work, meeting friends, and enjoying a perfectly poured pilsner as the sun begins to set over the city's spires. The air fills with the clinking of heavy glass mugs and the low hum of conversation. It is not a loud or rowdy scene, but a relaxed, communal exhalation. The city's living room, moved outdoors for a few precious months, a daily celebration of good beer, good company, and warm summer evenings. On the evening of December 5th, a strange and magical procession takes to the streets of Prague, as a trio of figures seemingly from another time appears in the city squares and on residential streets. There is Saint Nicholas, or Mikulas, a benevolent, white-bearded figure, resembling a bishop. He is accompanied by a beautiful, gentle angel, carrying a basket of treats, and a fearsome, chain-rattling devil, or Sirt, with a sack for naughty children. This trio approaches children, and asks them a simple question: have you been good this year? The children are expected to recite a poem or sing a song to prove their virtue. If they have been good, the angel rewards them with sweets and small gifts. If they have been naughty, the devil playfully threatens to carry them off in his sack. It is a piece of living folklore, a moment of street theater that is both slightly scary and deeply charming. A beloved annual ritual of judgment and reward. The rhythm of a Saturday morning in Prague is often set by the river itself. Along the Vltava's cobblestone embankment, at a place called Naplavka, the city's most popular farmers market comes to life. For locals, this weekly event is much more than just a place to buy groceries. It is the city's primary social gathering. People throng the riverbank, strolling from stall to stall, buying fresh produce, artisanal cheeses and homemade cakes. But the real purpose for many is to see and be seen. Friends meet for brunch at the food stalls, musicians play for the crowds, and people sit on the edge of the embankment, drinking coffee, and watching the swans drift by just feet away. It is a lively, vibrant, and essential part of the city's weekend routine, a place where the community comes together to eat, talk, and simply enjoy being by the water. In the tourist heart of Prague, a sweet, warm, and unmistakable smell hangs in the air, a scent of cinnamon, sugar, and grilling dough. This is the aroma of trdelník, a pastry that has become a modern symbol of the city for visitors. A long strip of dough is wrapped around a wooden or metal spit, called a trdlo, and then roasted over an open flame until it is golden brown. Immediately after it comes off the fire, it is rolled in a mixture of sugar, cinnamon, and walnuts. While it is now sold on almost every corner of the old town, it is a relatively recent addition to the city's culinary landscape, more of a tourist phenomenon than a traditional Czech food. Nevertheless, it has become a comforting, hand-warming ritual for visitors exploring the city on a cool day, and the sweet, pervasive scent is now an inseparable part of the modern sensory experience of Prague. As the month of April comes to a close, an ancient pagan spirit awakens in the hills and parks around Prague. On the night of April 30th, the sky glows with the light of countless bonfires. This is Palenie Karadejnik, or the Burning of the Witches, an old folk festival that marks the symbolic end of winter and the joyous welcoming of spring. Communities gather in parks and on hillsides to build and light huge bonfires, and often an effigy of a witch, representing the cold, darkness and illness of winter, is placed on top of the pyre to be consumed by the flames. As the fire roars, people sing, drink and roast sausages over the embers. It is a joyful communal release, a fiery and festive ritual that connects the modern city to its deep, pre-Christian roots, a night when the city celebrates the simple, powerful victory of light and warmth over the departing cold. On November 17th each year, a quiet and deeply moving ritual unfolds on Narodny Street, marking the anniversary of the start of the 1989 Velvet Revolution. At a small, unassuming memorial plaque under an arcade, thousands of people come throughout the day and into the night, not for a formal ceremony, but for a personal act of remembrance. One by one, they silently place flowers and light small candles on the ground beneath the plaque. By the end of the day, the pavement is transformed into a vast, shimmering sea of flickering flames and colorful bouquets. It is a spontaneous, leaderless, and incredibly powerful tribute to the students who were beaten on that spot, an event that galvanized the nation. Each small flame is a personal thank you, a quiet acknowledgement of the courage it took to stand up to an oppressive regime, a beautiful, silent conversation between the city and its own recent history. The public transportation system in Prague operates according to a set of quiet, unwritten rules, a deeply ingrained code of conduct that everyone seems to understand without being told. The most important of these rules concerns seating. As soon as an elderly person, a pregnant woman or someone with a small child steps onto a tram or metro car, younger passengers will almost automatically stand up and offer their seat. There is no announcement or sign demanding this. It is a small, immediate act of deference and respect that happens quickly, quietly, and without any expectation of thanks. This simple, daily rhythm of consideration is a fundamental part of the city's public etiquette. It is a small gesture that speaks volumes about the community's values, a quiet, constant dance of respect, played out hundreds of times a day on the city's moving stage. In the autumn, as the leaves begin to turn, and the air grows crisp, a favorite weekend ritual for many Praguers involves leaving the city behind entirely. They trade the cobblestone streets for the soft, damp earth of the surrounding forests, to take part in a cherished national pastime known as horberini, mushroom foraging. This is not just a casual walk in the woods, but a quiet, meditative hunt for edible fungi. Armed with wicker baskets and small knives, families and individuals spend hours searching for prized varieties like porcini and chanterelles. It is a skill passed down through generations, a deep and intimate knowledge of the forest and its secrets. The joy is found not just in the discovery, but in the quiet search itself, a way of connecting with nature, slowing down, and bringing a piece of the wild back to the city kitchen. In the Czech Republic, beer is not just a beverage, it is a craft, and the way it is poured is a crucial part of that tradition. A perfect pour, known as a hladinka, is considered a work of art. It is a single swift pour from a side-pull tap that fills the mug with golden pilsner, and tops it with a thick, wet, creamy head of foam. This foam, or peña, is not merely for show. It is dense and full of flavor, and it acts as a natural seal, protecting the beer underneath from oxygen, and keeping it fresh and crisp. To watch a skilled Czech bartender, or tapster, create a perfect hladinka, is to witness a moment of quiet, everyday artistry. It is a ritual that respects the beer, and is considered the only way to experience it as the brewer intended, with the foam as the crown of the beer. On the southern outskirts of Prague, there is a place that feels like a different city altogether, operating on its own distinct rhythm. The supper market, often called Little Hanoi, is the vibrant heart of Prague's large and well-established Vietnamese community. It is a sprawling complex of warehouses, shops and restaurants that on weekends becomes a bustling hub of activity. The air is filled with the fragrant scent of steaming pho and exotic spices, while families gather in the large food halls for authentic Vietnamese meals. The grocery stores are piled high with unfamiliar fruits, vegetables and imported goods that are hard to find elsewhere in the city. It is a place where the sounds and smells of Southeast Asia thrive in the heart of Central Europe, a testament to the city's ability to absorb and embrace new cultures, creating a richer and more diverse urban tapestry. Every hour, on the hour, a large crowd gathers in the Old Town Square, their phones and cameras raised to watch the mechanical procession of the Apostles on the astronomical clock. For tourists, this is a quintessential Prague event. For the people who live and work in the square, however, the clock has a very different rhythm. For them, the real event is not the visual spectacle, but the familiar sound. The brief, tinny fanfare, the crowing of the mechanical rooster, and the final, solemn tolling of the bell, are simply an hourly punctuation to their day. It is the sound of 10 o'clock, of noon, of 5 o'clock. It is an auditory landmark, a gentle, hourly chime that marks the passing of time in the heart of the city, a performance they no longer watch, but one they would surely miss if it were gone. For a few nights each autumn, Prague is transformed into a vast open-air gallery of light during the Signal Festival, which fills the city with dazzling installations and video projections. Thousands of people crowd the streets to experience this modern spectacle, but there is another, quieter part of this festival's rhythm. It occurs in the pre-dawn hours, after the last show has ended, and the crowds have finally gone home. In the empty squares, street sweepers move like slow, methodical ghosts, their brushes whispering over the cobblestones as they erase the traces of the night's festivities. Technicians begin their work, powering down the massive projectors and coiling up miles of cable. It is a moment of quiet beauty, the city being gently reset, the calm aftermath of a storm of light before Prague wakes up and returns to its normal self. The Czech pub, or hospoda, is not merely a place to drink beer, it is a cornerstone of the country's social life, a second living room for many of its regulars. The rhythm of the hospoda is slow and comfortable, a place for long conversations that unfold over hours, not minutes. The rules are simple and understood by all. You do not need to go to the bar to order. You simply find a seat, and a beer will arrive. The waiter, often a gruff but efficient figure, keeps track of your drinks with a series of pencil marks on a small slip of paper left on your table. When he sees your glass is nearly empty, he will often bring another, without you even having to ask. It is a place of easy companionship and quiet continuity, a timeless and essential Prague ritual. Easter Monday in Prague brings a strange and ancient ritual to the city's streets and homes. Boys and men carry a special whip, called a komlaska, which is braided from fresh willow twigs and decorated with colorful ribbons. They go from house to house, visiting female friends and relatives, and playfully tap the girls and women with the whip. This is not an act of aggression, but a folk tradition rooted in pagan beliefs, said to bring health, fertility and youth for the coming year, as the life force of the spring willow is symbolically transferred. In return for this playful whipping, the men are rewarded with a beautifully painted egg, a shot of plum brandy, or a sweet treat. It is a peculiar, lively and slightly baffling tradition that marks the full arrival of spring in a uniquely Czech way. If you wish to experience the quietest moment in Prague, you should wake up early on a Sunday morning in summer. The city, usually so full of life, feels strangely peaceful and sleepy, especially in its residential quarters. This is because a significant portion of the city's population has disappeared, following the rhythm of the chata, the small country cottage that is a cherished part of Czech culture. From Friday afternoon, a weekly exodus from the city begins, as people head to their small cabins in the woods, or by a river, to spend the weekend gardening, relaxing, and breathing the fresh country air. This mass departure leaves the city's elegant residential neighborhoods, like Vinohrady or Device, feeling wonderfully calm. The streets are empty, the cafes are quiet, and for a few hours, the city seems to be taking a long, slow, collective breath. On a warm afternoon, if you happen to walk along the riverbank past the Grand Rudolfinum Concert Hall, you might be treated to an impromptu performance. During the day, the world-class Czech Philharmonic Orchestra holds its rehearsals inside, and on warm days they often open the tall windows of the rehearsal rooms to let in the air. When they do, the glorious sound of classical music spills out and floats over the river, perhaps a passage from Dvorak or Smetana, the soaring strings and powerful brass echoing across the water. It is a uniquely Prague rhythm, a moment when the city's high culture becomes part of the public soundscape. It is a beautiful, accidental concert for anyone who happens to be walking by at the right moment, a reminder of the deep and living musical heritage that flows through the city, like the river itself. The night in Prague has its own particular set of rituals, and after the bars and theaters close, as people are heading home, a familiar, savory smell draws them to small stands on street corners. This is the scent of the klobasa, the classic Czech grilled sausage. For many, a late-night klobasa is the perfect and necessary end to an evening out. The ritual is simple and deeply satisfying. You stand in the cool night air, often near a tram stop or a metro station, and eat the hot, juicy sausage, served in a fresh bread roll with a dollop of mustard. It is not a fancy meal, but it is a deeply comforting one. It is a familiar taste of the city, a final, simple pleasure before the journey home, the full stop at the end of a Prague night. Every day at noon, a large crowd gathers in the main courtyard of Prague Castle to watch the formal changing of the guard ceremony, a grand spectacle of military precision and musical fanfare. There is, however, a quieter and more intimate rhythm to this daily event. If you wander through the castle complex on a quiet morning, you might hear a solitary trumpet call echoing through a stone courtyard. In the side alleys and practice rooms, far away from the crowds, the musicians of the castle guard diligently practice their parts. You might hear a lone drummer tapping out a rhythm, or a single horn player perfecting a difficult passage. This is the rehearsal for the ceremony, the private work that goes into the public performance. It is a small, solitary sound that is the true, underlying heartbeat of the castle's grandest daily ritual. The Vltava River flows directly through the heart of Prague, but it also contains several places of quiet escape. The city's many islands, such as Streleki Ostrov or Kampa, possess their own distinct and relaxed rhythm, existing just a few steps away from the busiest streets, but feeling like another world entirely. Here, the pace of life slows down considerably. People lie on the grass reading books. Families rent small paddle boats to explore the river at their own speed, and friends gather to talk for hours. From the water level perspective of these islands, the grand city across the river looks like a beautiful, distant stage set. The noise of the traffic is replaced by the sound of water and the calls of birds. These islands are the city's green lungs, quiet pockets of calm, where Praguers go to watch their own city go by. Once a year, the streets of Prague belong to the runners, as the Prague Marathon takes over the entire historic center of the city. The most magical part of this event, however, is not the race itself, but the profound silence that precedes it. In the very early morning, around 6 o'clock, the city is still asleep. On the completely empty Charles Bridge, a small crew moves quietly in the pre-dawn light, laying down the single blue line that marks the official course for the runners. For a brief, peaceful moment, the iconic bridge is a place of pure, quiet anticipation. The statues are silent silhouettes against the lightning sky, and the only sign of the thousands of people who will soon pound these cobblestones is this single, perfect blue line, a promise of the energy that is about to be unleashed. In Prague, a coffee shop is not always a place for a quick caffeine fix. The Grand Café, or Kavárna, is an institution with its own unique rhythm, a place dedicated to the luxury of slow time. In historic cafes like the Louvre, the Savoy or the Slavia, the tradition of intellectual lingering is still very much alive. Here, you are not just a customer but a guest, welcome to order a single coffee and sit for hours, reading a newspaper, writing in a journal, or engaging in quiet conversation. The waiters in their smart uniforms will not rush you, as they understand that the purpose of the Kavárna is not just to serve coffee, but to provide a beautiful, civilized space for thought and reflection. It is a ritual that honors the city's long history as a center of literature, art, and ideas. The bridges of Prague are more than just functional ways to cross the river. They are vital arteries for the city's daily commute, and they possess their own tidal rhythm. At dawn, as the sun rises behind the old town, a steady flow of pedestrians begins to move across the bridges into the city center. At dusk, the flow reverses, as people head home towards the western districts. During these hours, the bridges are filled with a quiet, purposeful stream of individuals, each lost in their own world, listening to music, or simply thinking as they walk. They become silhouettes against the magnificent backdrop of the castle, or the historic skyline. It is a beautiful, silent parade that happens twice a day, the city's workforce in motion, a collective journey that marks the beginning and the end of the working day. The end of a major ice hockey game in Prague has a very specific and powerful rhythm. The O2 Arena, home to one of the city's beloved teams, empties out in a matter of minutes, but the energy of the game does not simply dissipate. Instead, it spills out into the adjoining metro station. Win or lose, the fans, wrapped in their team scarves and jerseys, flood the platform, filling the clean, modern space with a wave of collective emotion. They sing team songs, chant their heroes, names, and relive the game's most dramatic moments, the sound echoing through the tiled tunnels. Then, the train arrives, the doors open, and this wave of passion is absorbed into the public transit system. It is a brief, intense and joyful takeover of a public space, a final cheer before the fans disperse into the quiet of the night. While walking down Husova Street in the Old Town, if you happen to remember to look up, you might experience a moment of genuine shock. Dangling from a long pole extended high above the cobblestones, is a life-sized sculpture of a man clinging on with just one hand, his other tucked casually into his pocket, as he gazes thoughtfully downward. This is not, however, a person in distress, but rather a famous sculpture by the artist David Cerny entitled Man Hanging Out, with the figure intended to represent Sigmund Freud. The piece is so startlingly realistic that it has reportedly caused numerous panicked calls to emergency services from tourists and locals, who believe it to be a real crisis. It represents a perfect piece of Prague's unique strangeness, a quiet intellectual joke that doubles as a public safety concern, hanging serenely over the street below. In the quiet courtyard of the Franz Kafka Museum, there is a fountain that is both clever and wonderfully absurd. Two life-sized bronze sculptures of men stand facing each other in a shallow pool that is shaped like a map of the Czech Republic. The two men are urinating into it. Their bronze hips swivel, and their streams of water move back and forth. But this is not a random pattern. The streams are actually writing out quotes from famous works of Czech literature. The sculpture, simply called Piss, is interactive. Visitors can send a text message to a number displayed nearby, and the statues will obediently spell out their message in the water. It is a strange, funny, and surprisingly sophisticated piece of art that perfectly captures the nation's love for literature and its irreverent sense of humor. It is a fountain of knowledge, in a very literal sense. Prague is home to a street so narrow that it requires its own traffic light. But this signal is not for cars. It is for people. Tucked away in a quiet corner of the lesser town near the Charles Bridge, is an alley called Vinana Chertovka, that is only 50 centimeters, or about 20 inches wide. It runs for about 10 meters between two buildings, down a set of stone steps to a restaurant at the bottom. The alley is so narrow that it is impossible for two people to pass each other. To prevent pedestrians from getting stuck in a face-to-face traffic jam, a small push-button traffic light was installed at either end. You press the button, wait for the green man, and then make your way down the claustrophobic passage. It is a charming and practical solution to a uniquely Prague problem, a street that is more of a crack than a thoroughfare. Inside the main entrance of Prague's municipal library, there is a sculpture that you can literally get lost in. It is called Idiom, and from the outside, it appears to be a tall, cylindrical tower constructed from 8,000 books. The real magic, however, happens when you look inside. The artist Mate Kren created a teardrop-shaped opening in the side of the tower. When you peer into this aperture, you are looking into infinity. Kren cleverly placed mirrors at the top and bottom of the book tower, which reflect the books over and over again, creating the dizzying illusion of a bottomless, spiraling vortex of knowledge. It is a powerful and mesmerizing visual metaphor for the endless world of learning and stories that can be found inside a library. It is a sculpture that you don't just look at, you experience it, a wormhole made of paper and glass. On the banks of the Vltava River, not far from the elegant arches of the Charles Bridge, lives a strange and unexpected group of residents. A large colony of nutria, which are large, semi-aquatic rodents originally from South America, has made a home here, having escaped from fur farms in the last century. These creatures, which look like a cross between a beaver and a giant guinea pig, are a bizarre and now common sight in the heart of the city. They swim placidly in the river, climb onto the stone embankments to sun themselves, and have become quite bold in their interactions with people. They will often approach tourists and locals, begging for scraps of vegetables with their large, orange teeth. They are an invasive species that has somehow become a beloved, if slightly weird, part of the city's urban wildlife, a furry, foreign and permanent addition to the riverside scenery. In the magnificent gardens of the Wallenstein Palace, there is a wall that appears to be melting. It is a vast, grey, lumpy surface that seems to be made of dripping rock, like the inside of a natural cave. This is the Dripstone Wall, a masterpiece of 17th century artifice designed to look like a grotto. From a distance it looks like a natural limestone formation, but as you get closer and your eyes adjust to the strange textures, you begin to see things. The stalactite-like formations are not random. Hidden within the grotesque shapes are the distorted faces of people, the forms of animals, and the twisted bodies of monsters. A screaming face, a snake, a frog, an owl. They are all there, waiting to be discovered. It is an eerie and fascinating work of art. A wall that seems to be having a nightmare. A place where the stone itself seems to be alive with hidden figures. At the base of Petrin Hill stands one of Prague's most powerful and heartbreaking monuments. The memorial to the victims of communism is not a single statue, but a procession of suffering that unfolds on a long flight of stairs. It consists of a series of 7 bronze figures of a man descending the wide staircase. The first figure, at the top of the stairs, is whole and complete. But each subsequent statue becomes progressively more decayed and broken, with limbs missing, and the body appearing to crack and disintegrate. By the time you reach the final figure at the bottom, it is barely recognizable as a human form, just a fragmented collection of limbs. It is a devastatingly simple and effective visual metaphor for the way the communist regime dehumanized and destroyed the individual, a silent, sorrowful walk that testifies to the erosion of the human spirit under tyranny. Franz Kafka's legacy in Prague is complex, but one monument to him is undeniably spectacular. Outside a shopping center near the city hall, a massive, 11-meter-tall sculpture of the writer's head slowly comes apart and puts itself back together in a constant, fluid motion. The sculpture, by artist David Cerny, is made of 42 independently rotating layers of mirrored stainless steel. These layers constantly move, deconstructing Kafka's face into a series of shifting, abstract slices, and then seamlessly reassembling it into a perfect portrait. The effect is mesmerizing, a piece of high-tech engineering that is also a profound work of art. It reflects the fragmented, anxious, and constantly shifting nature of the modern world that Kafka describes so well in his writing. It is a restless, metallic mind forever turning in on itself in the middle of a busy public square. In a quiet church in the lesser town, one of the world's most famous religious icons holds court. The infant Jesus of Prague is a small, 16-inch tall statue of the child Jesus, made of wood and coated in wax, which dates back to the 16th century, and is believed by many to have miraculous powers. What makes this statue truly unique, however, is its extensive wardrobe. The infant Jesus has a vast and lavish collection of custom-made robes, donated by devotees from all over the world, including empresses and popes. There are hundreds of these tiny, intricate garments, some of them decorated with gold thread and precious jewels. The statue is dressed by nuns in different colored robes, according to the Catholic liturgical season. It is a strange and touching display of devotion, a tiny king who is also a kind of divine doll, perpetually being dressed for the occasion. One of Prague's most enduring legends tells of a giant made of clay, created in the 16th century by a wise rabbi named Judah Loew ben Bezalel. The story goes that he formed this powerful being called the Golem from the mud of the Vltava River to protect Prague's Jewish community from persecution. The golem was immensely strong but had no soul, and it was brought to life by a secret Hebrew word, a kol b'shem parakwai shem, placed in its mouth. The legend says that after the golem went on a violent rampage, the rabbi removed the magic word, returning the creature to lifeless clay. The story doesn't end there, however, as it is said that the inert body of the golem was hidden away in the attic of the Old New Synagogue, the oldest in Europe. To this day the attic remains locked, sealed, and inaccessible to the public, preserving the mystery and the legend. A long, medieval-looking stone wall snakes its way up the side of Petrine Hill, and it is known as the Hunger Wall, a name that suggests a grim and desperate history. The story behind it, however, is not what it seems. The wall was commissioned by Emperor Charles IV in the 1360s, during a time of severe famine in the city. Its primary purpose was not defense, as the city was already well fortified. Instead, the wall was a pioneering example of a public works project. Charles IV ordered its construction specifically to create jobs for the city's poor and unemployed citizens, allowing them to earn money to buy food for their families. It was a remarkably forward-thinking solution to a medieval crisis. The wall was not built to keep enemies out, but to keep hunger at bay, and it stands today as a monument to a ruler's compassion. In the vast expanse of the old town square, amidst the thousands of paving stones, there is a small and somber memorial that is very easy to overlook. Embedded in the pavement near the old town hall are 27 white crosses, simple, stark, and flush with the ground. Each cross marks the exact spot where a person was executed. In 1621, following the defeat of the Protestant nobles at the Battle of White Mountain, 27 of their leaders were publicly beheaded in the square in a brutal act of political retribution by the victorious Habsburgs. The crosses were placed here to ensure that this dark day in the nation's history is never forgotten. They are a quiet, permanent reminder of the cost of rebellion, a grim historical marker that thousands of people walk over every day, most without ever noticing. Prague Castle is undeniably large, so large in fact, that it holds an official Guinness World Record as the largest ancient castle complex in the world. It covers a staggering area of almost 70,000 square meters, or about 17 acres. To call it a castle is almost misleading. It is more accurate to describe it as a small, walled city. The complex contains not one, but several palaces, 3 churches, a monastery, and numerous houses, halls and gardens, all interconnected by a network of streets and courtyards. It is a dense and sprawling collection of buildings from every era of the city's history. You can spend an entire day walking within its walls, and still not see everything. Its immense scale is a testament to its unbroken history, as the seat of power in the Czech lands for over 1,000 years. It wasn't just a home, it was a universe. The pub Zlatého Tigra, which translates to the Golden Tiger, is a classic Prague institution, a small, smoky and often crowded place, famous for serving some of the best Pilsner in the city. Above its unassuming door is a small, polished metal tiger head. This pub was a favorite haunt of the great Czech writer Bohumil Hrabal, but it became world famous for a different reason. In 1994, the Czech president, Václav Havel, a former dissident playwright, decided to take the visiting US President, Bill Clinton, for a beer. He didn't take him to a palace or a fancy restaurant. He brought him here, to this authentic, local pub. It was a brilliant piece of cultural diplomacy, a meeting of 2 worlds in a place that represented the heart and soul of everyday Czech life. The small tiger head remains a quiet witness to that historic pint. The location of Prague's Museum of Communism is a small, perfect joke that only a city with a dark sense of humor could create. The museum, which documents the oppression and absurdity of the communist era, is not located in a grim, isolated building. Instead, it is found on the upper floor of a modern commercial building in the heart of the city. Directly below the museum is a large McDonald's, and next door to the building is a flashy casino. This accidental, perfect juxtaposition of ideologies is a strange but fitting quirk of modern Prague. In one single location you have the failed ideology of communism, the global symbol of consumer capitalism, and the random chance of the casino. It is a bizarre but strangely eloquent summary of the city's journey through the 20th century, all found at a single, very busy address. In the late 16th century, Prague was the world capital of alchemy, as the eccentric Emperor Rudolf II was obsessed with the occult, and invited the most famous alchemists and magicians to his court. For centuries, it was believed their laboratories were lost to time. However, one was recently rediscovered, hidden beneath a building in the Jewish quarter, after being sealed and forgotten for centuries. The Speculum Alchemiae, or Mirror of Alchemy, is a network of underground chambers, where artifacts were found, along with a system of secret tunnels, that are said to lead all the way to Prague Castle. The laboratory has been restored to how it might have looked in Rudolf's time, complete with furnaces, glass retorts, and human skulls. It is a strange and fascinating glimpse into a time when science, magic, and the search for gold were all dangerously intertwined. The Charles Bridge has stood for over 600 years, surviving floods, wars, and the constant tread of millions of feet. A popular and persistent legend seeks to explain its incredible longevity. The story says that when the bridge was being built in the 14th century, the builders mixed eggs into the mortar to make it stronger. The legend is very specific. It was just the egg yolks that were used, and towns and villages all over Bohemia were ordered to send eggs to the construction site in Prague. While modern scientific analysis of the mortar has been inconclusive about the presence of eggs, the legend itself speaks to a deeper truth. It reflects the immense pride and importance that people attached to the bridge, a project that required the whole nation's effort. The story of the eggs, whether true or not, is a testament to the bridge's cherished place in the nation's heart. The two dramatic Gothic spires of the Tin Church dominate the Old Town Square, and are one of the most recognizable symbols of Prague. From a distance they appear to be identical twins, soaring into the sky with equal grace. If you look closely, however, you will see that they are not identical at all. One of the towers, the southern one, is slightly larger, thicker, and more robust than the other. This was a deliberate choice by the medieval builders. The larger tower is said to represent the male side of the world, Adam, while the more slender, elegant tower represents the female side, Eve. In the architecture of the time, this subtle asymmetry was a common way of representing the two fundamental principles of creation. It is a quiet, symbolic detail that is hidden in plain sight, a small lesson in medieval philosophy, encoded in the city's skyline. Near the Charles Bridge, a stone statue of a knight stands guard on a pillar, looking sternly towards the river with a lion at his feet. This is the knight Brunswick, a mythical prince who, according to legend, went on a series of adventures, and acquired a magical sword that would, on its own, fly through the air and cut off the heads of his enemies. The legend has a very specific connection to Prague, as it is said that Brunswick's magic sword is hidden somewhere within the walls of the Charles Bridge itself. The sword is waiting for the day when the Czech nation is in its darkest hour of peril. On that day St. Wenceslas will ride out with his army of sleeping knights to defend the land, and the magic sword will fly out from the bridge and into his hand. The statue is a quiet promise of a magical protector, sleeping in the stone. The lion is a common symbol of courage and royalty in European heraldry. But the symbol of Bohemia, the historic kingdom of the Czechs, has a peculiar distinction. If you look closely at the coats of arms on buildings all over Prague, you will notice something strange about the lion rampant. The Bohemian lion has two tails. This unusual bit of heraldry dates back to the 12th century. The story goes that the King of Bohemia was granted the second tail for his coat of arms by the Holy Roman Emperor as a special honor, awarded to recognize the exceptional courage of his soldiers in a battle in Italy. This strange, double-tailed lion became a proud symbol of the kingdom's special status and bravery. It is a small, specific, and slightly quirky detail that sets the Czech lion apart from all the others. The streets of Prague have names that echo with history, poetry, and legend, with thoroughfares named for kings, saints, and ancient crafts. And then there is a street in the Vltava district, whose name is simply a number. The street is called 28 Pluku, which translates to 28th Regiment Street, so it does have a specific historical meaning, referring to an infantry regiment from the First World War. But the name as it appears on the street sign is just the number. In a city of romantic and evocative names, this one stands out for its stark, numerical simplicity. It is a strange and specific address, a small piece of modern, military history embedded in the city's map, a name that is more of a designation than a description, and a quiet anomaly in the city's otherwise poetic directory. Prague is famously divided into districts like the Old Town and the Lesser Town, and then there is the New Town. The name, New Town or Nové Mesto, is one of the city's greatest and most charming misnomers because it is not new at all. The New Town was founded by Emperor Charles IV in the year 1348, which makes it well over 670 years old. At the time of its creation, it was a massive and visionary urban expansion, a truly new city, built outside the old walls that doubled Prague's size. But time has a way of changing the meaning of words. Today the name is a permanent and slightly ironic reminder of the city's incredible age, and the grand ambition of its medieval past. To walk through the new town is to walk through a neighborhood that is older than many entire cities in other parts of the world. Inside the magnificent church of St. James the Greater, there is a strange and gruesome object hanging high on the right-hand wall. It is a mummified human forearm, blackened and shriveled with age, which has been hanging there for over 400 years. The story behind this macabre relic is a cautionary tale of divine justice. It is said to be the arm of a jewel thief who tried to steal precious gems from a statue of the Virgin Mary. As he reached for the jewels, the statue miraculously came to life and grabbed his arm in an unbreakable grip. The trapped thief could not be freed, and in the end, the priests had no choice but to amputate his arm. The arm was then hung on the wall, as a permanent and visceral warning to any other would-be thieves. It is a strange, dark and unforgettable piece of church decoration. Prague boasts one of the best public transport systems in the world, with a modern fleet of efficient trams and metro cars. On weekends and holidays during the summer season, however, you might see a ghost from the past rolling through the city center. The city's transport company operates a special nostalgia line, tram number 41, which uses beautiful vintage red streetcars from the early 20th century. These are not replicas. They are the real, restored trams, with their polished wooden benches, clanging bells and open-air platforms. The tram runs on a scenic route through the most historic parts of the city, offering a chance to experience Prague at a slower, more elegant pace. It is a living, moving piece of history, with the wind in your hair and the clickety-clack of the wheels on the track. On the Charles Bridge stands the statue of St. John of Nepomuk, the patron saint of the bridge, whose likeness is one of the most revered. At the base of the statue are two bronze plaques, one of which depicts the moment of his death, when he was thrown from the bridge into the Vltava. Over the centuries, a very specific tradition has developed around this plaque. Touching it is said to bring good luck, and to ensure that you will one day return to Prague. The tradition is to touch the falling figure of the saint himself. As a result of millions of hands rubbing this one spot, the bronze has been worn to a brilliant, polished shine. It glows with a golden light, a bright spot of hope and superstition on the dark, weathered plaque, a testament to the power of a simple, repeated touch. Our walk through Prague is coming to an end. Wherever you've drifted to, you don't need to come back. There's nothing more to listen for tonight. Sleep well.